And I like to think in my own case that the great design in nature for homosexuality is that a certain number of people are, as it were, not committed to the children and a nuclear family, but have a larger commitment. I feel a larger commitment. I feel a commitment, or I wouldn't be here today, a commitment to share my insights with you respectfully, for your consideration. And I think maybe that is what is my genetic mission or fate. And you often find gay people are in service activities, and they're involved in, a lot of them are in religion. A lot of gay people are in religion because they have a deep feeling of spirituality and a search and a puzzle to find why this is so. And since Kinsey's report and Hooker's report, it seems to have been established that it's not entirely genetic. There are theories about hormonal influences in the early development of the fetus, and some say there are environmental factors. But does it really matter? Whatever it is, some people turn out to have this identification. And I tell you, I have had a very wonderful life. I've had loving parents and siblings. I have had accepting and loving parents. Not everyone has that. I've had a wonderful partner who keeps my feet on the ground and tells me where it is. You know, he's from the Netherlands, and they're very blunt people, the people from Netherlands. So he puts me in my place. I could never get too big for my boots when I was a justice of this country's highest court, because I'd go home and I would be taken down a peg or two, which is very good. And so this was my life, and anybody who would say, as one Anglican priest wrote to me last year, he said, you have to leave your partner. You must go and abandon and reject him, because this is contrary to the word of God. You must abandon this person who's given his life to you, and you must live alone and renounce the devil. I should say, I wrote to my Archbishop, Archbishop Jensen, and he said, well, you know, I'm sorry, I was brought up in the Protestant tradition of Anglicanism, so I know where Archbishop Jensen comes from. He is always very courteous in replying. He always thanks me for putting my submissions to him. He's always mindful, and he said, well, this same priest has offered help to him from time to time. And therefore I should look on it as an attempt to be of assistance. And so I do. And I'm sure he meant well by writing to me, but the bottom line on this submission is that everyone knows that a loving relationship is extremely good for your physical and psychic health. That's the bottom line. And anybody who would deny another human being a loving companion and partner, who talks about the books he's read, some of them are on religion, who talks about the plays that we should see, who is concerned, who cares whether you're alive, that is not a kind thing. That is not a kind thing. And I'm here to share that little insight with you from my humble life. It's just not a very nice thing to suggest that I've got to throw him out of the house and renounce the devil. It just really is not sensible, and I'm not going to do it. Anyway, apart from anything else that had cost me a few $1 million, that is Leviticus. And essentially, I mean, there are many theologians now who say we have to reread this. We have to read it in its context. We've got to read it in the context of adultery being a death sentence for straight people. And this is not... Why don't all those people who are being nasty in religions to gays ever quote verse 10? Why don't they quote... Why are they going on about me and Johan all the time? Why? I mean, if we're going to go back to the rules in Leviticus, we've got to be neutral. We've got to raise them all. And we've got to also make sure that it's sort of for everyone, not just for gays. And that makes you stop and think, well, now, is this really the message of a loving God? And in particular, in the New Testament, is it the message of Jesus? Jesus never said anything against gays. He said, I come to fulfill the law, and that is used as a crutch for saying, therefore he's there to fulfill Leviticus. But it doesn't seem to fit very well with the things that Jesus preached in his lifetime. So I can be a Christian and a homosexual and feel quite comfortable, and I have, in a Protestant way, a feeling of a direct connection. I don't need intermediaries. I can go straight in my mind to God, and often do, every time I take off and every time I land in a plane. I know you do the same, don't you? Don't you laugh at all this. I know you're doing the same. And it doesn't hurt any of us to reflect and to go through those who matter, and it's my father, my mother, Jan, my siblings, and a few others, and it doesn't hurt, and I'm sure God is listening. So that's homosexuality. Now, I only came upon apostasy because I was asked to deliver a lecture at Griffith University, and that got me into looking at the Lena Joy case in Malaysia. And the Lena Joy case has been the subject of a very large number of extremely thoughtful essays, including by Abdullah, whom I'm very glad and proud to meet today. And what I'm now going to say is very respectful, and it's not intended to be sort of saying that I think that it was all wrong. But it is instructive for somebody who is brought up in a society that really doesn't punish blasphemy now, though we did. It had to be blasphemy against the tenets of the Christian belief only, and then against Anglican Christianity. That was the common law of England. It wasn't. It was very particular. It had to be against Anglican notions of Christianity. So that was the English law on blasphemy. But it's a long time since we punished apostasy, though the common law, according to Bracton, back in 1200, did have an offence for apostasy. And there was a case of the deacon and the Jewess. The deacon fell for the Jewess and wished to renounce Christianity and embrace Judaism, and for that he paid at the stake. The punishment was burning at the stake. And so that was the law back in 1200. And so I was a bit puzzled about this, and I therefore went back to Deuteronomy and saw what Deuteronomy says about this. It may be that Deuteronomy is the fifth book of the Old Testament. But Deuteronomy says, if thy brother and son of thy mother, or thy son or thy daughter, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend, which is as thine own soul, entice thee secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, and then it goes on, that you shall surely kill him. Thine hand shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hands of the people. So there was no beating around the bush. The person who tries to entice a person away from the one true God is subject again to the penalty of death. And so it is in the laws of a number of countries. Now, homosexuality went with British rule, anti-homosexual offences went with British rule to all of the countries that Britain ever colonised. And that means all of the countries of the Commonwealth of Nations, that's 53, plus the United States of America, plus Ireland, plus Burma. They're the only ex-colonies that are not in the Commonwealth. And of the 53 countries of the Commonwealth of Nations, 41 have laws against homosexuals, criminal laws, lock them up, serious punishments. But not many countries of the Commonwealth have a law against apostasy. But some states of Malaysia do have rules which govern apostasy. They don't require the death penalty, but they do provide for birching and for punishments of imprisonment. And Lena Joy was a young Malaysian person born into a Muslim family who met a boyfriend who was Christian, and she wanted to marry him, so she wanted to change her religion. I'm sorry? Oh, he was Buddhist, was he? I see. Well, she had a lot of support from the Archbishop of Malaysia, and you may be right. It doesn't really matter. It's change. He wanted to leave Islam, and that led to her applying for a change in her official documents, her passport or papers. And the document came back changing her name from her Islamic name to Lena Joy, but not changing her religion. Her religion was still shown as Islam. And she then applied in the way that you do in a rule of law society to the officials to change the religion, and they would not do it. And then she applied to the first instance court, and that court rejected the claim. That went on appeal to the Court of Appeal. That affirmed the decision at first instance. It then went to the Federal Court of Malaysia, which is their highest court, and the Federal Court of Malaysia, by 2-1, said that it wouldn't interfere, and it therefore confirmed the decision of the courts below. And it was at that point that the Archbishop said, well, frankly, what I always tell people is this is not likely to change, and they should go and live somewhere else and not live in Malaysia. Now, the curiosity of the case from a legal point of view is that in the 1957 Constitution of Malaysia, there are provisions which are not dissimilar to the provisions in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which affirm the right of a person to freedom of conscience and freedom of religion. And though certain exceptions were recognised to that when the principles of Eleanor Roosevelt's Universal Declaration were translated into the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, those exceptions related to the fact that the exceptions would apply in cases of public order and health and matters of that kind, and in the rearing of children. Well, now, Lena Joy wasn't a child anymore, and therefore she wasn't within the child exception, and it was hard to see how the universal principles of human rights would excuse the Malaysian law from conforming, if it was going to comply with the universal principles, with the freedom of conscience and religion in her case. It is a problem not just for Malaysia, but for many Islamic countries. And it's a curious problem from a non-Islamic point of view, because if you actually go back to the Holy Quran contains a very explicit statement that there shall be no enforcement of religion, that it won't be forced, but there are writings attributed to the Prophet which attribute to him instruction that you have to, that it's a very serious offence to leave Islam. And that is reflected in the laws of a number of Islamic countries. For example, in the criminal law of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, not only is homosexual conduct subject to the death penalty, as in Leviticus, but so also is adult renunciation of Islam by a person born into Islam. the Iranian criminal law draws a distinction between a change in religion which comes upon a child because the parent has changed, and that doesn't attract, in the case of the child, the death penalty, but knowing alteration of one's religion out of Islam carries the death penalty in Iran. And when you look at a large number of law review articles I've seen, it doesn't always carry the death penalty, but it's always or often a very serious offence in Islamic countries. Now, we who have come through 41 of 53 countries of the Commonwealth, which do nasty things to gays, must be the last people who are too critical of other societies that do nasty things to apostates. But the essence of secularism, How
does one stop a judge?
I'll sit down. I will finish one sentence, but one sentence. The good aspect of a secular state and the separation of the church and state, or of religion and the state, is that it guarantees a space for everyone in which they can fulfil their own internal voice and conscience and beliefs and religion. And I think all of us have things to learn on this. The Germans certainly did. We do still, and many countries do, on homosexuality. And I think especially Islamic countries have to learn some things about apostasy, because freedom of conscience and of religious belief is something of the deep yearning of human beings and is respectful of God, because God, I think, as the Holy Quran says, does not enforce a religious adherence. That is something we humans gladly and voluntarily, respectfully and humbly give.